Hey guys, it's Jenna. Welcome back to my channel. I'm coming at you with another book tag. This is the Library 411 book tag, and I felt that I just had to do this one. And I was also tagged by Krista over at BooksandJams, so thank you, Krista. But I had to do it because it's all themed around different sections and different aspects about a public library. So I'm just excited to get to it. This is a really fun tag, but it is pretty long, so I'm just gonna jump right in. The first question is all about the information desk. Pick a book that was helpful to you. And I am choosing Captivating by John and Stacey Eldridge. I read this in college and it helped me through a hard time, just kind of finding my way as I was on my own for the first time and getting out of a relationship that I probably shouldn't have been in at that point in my life. And it was just uplifting and just helped me through a lot. Next question is the return bin. What are two books you read? Oh, I only picked one. Oops. What are two books you read and immediately wanted to return, or a recent DNF? And I picked The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. Yes, Albert. This is a recent DNF for me. I put it down at about 70 to 75% of the way through. I just could not do it. Couldn't do it. It's a YA fantasy novel if you're unfamiliar. It sounded like it was right up my alley, but it ended up disappointing me so much. I thought it was incredibly captivating at first. I really loved the writing, and I loved the way that the world was being set up and the characters and her backstory. Basically, it's about a young girl named Alice living in New York City, and her grandmother is kind of famous in an obscure way. She wrote this book of fairy tales a number of years past, and she has kind of like a cult following on the internet, and there's this whole mystery surrounding her because she disappeared, and so Alice has to figure out where she went, and all of these weird things start to happen. And I won't tell you too much more than that in case you are interested in reading it, but I was just definitely disappointed around the halfway mark, and then I kind of pushed myself to read further just in case it picked up a little bit, but I just couldn't do it. Next up is the hold section. What is your most anticipated release which you can't wait to get your hands on? This one, I already have my hands on it, but it is a recent release that I cannot wait to read, and that is The Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Gratton. I am so excited to read this. It is a fantasy retelling of the story of King Lear by Shakespeare. And I love the story of King Lear. If you know anything about theater, you know that it is probably the most challenging play to produce, to direct, to act in. It's just a beast of a story. And I'm just really intrigued how this chunker of a book is going to handle that as a retelling. So excited about that one. Next up is community classes and study rooms. Pick a book you loved that was a school assignment. I read Wuthering Heights in school, and I absolutely loved it. This is the only book that I can remember actually really loving in school. I didn't mind The Great Gatsby too much, but this one was definitely my favorite out of all the ones I read. Next up is computers. Pick a modern classic you love or your favorite sci-fi. And I'm going with the Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. It's a YA sci-fi adventure thriller series that's told in this multimedia format. And it's just so fun, you guys. A lot of people say that, or at least I've heard a few people say that the books start off great and they kind of go downhill. And I would agree with that just a smidge, but I think that was honestly because the first book, you're introduced to this new format you may not have seen before, and it's revolutionary and great. And then by the second and third books, you're used to it. So it's still really cool to read and to get through and experience, but it's not a novelty anymore. So I think that might have a little bit to do with that particular opinion. But I would still recommend it because it's super fun, and it's like a 660-page book, each one of them, that you could get through in just a couple days because of the way that it's set up. So I highly recommend it. Next up is DVD rentals. This one has a lot of options that you can pick from. Pick your most anticipated or favorite in recent history book to movie or TV adaptation, or a book that felt cinematic, or a book that you wish would be adapted into a movie or a show. And I'm going with the Queen of Shadows TV show that's supposed to be produced on Hulu, I believe. It was picked up a year or two ago, and we haven't heard anything since. No casting, no nothing. So I'm really, really hoping that it finally gets put into motion and we get a cast soon, because I would just love, 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 love watching that show. Next up is the library book sale, a random book you picked up without knowing anything about it, or show off your favorite bookish merch. Okay, so I picked my favorite bookish merch, and it is like a pullover kind of sweater shirt. I don't really know how to describe it. I wear this so much because it's so soft. I love the color, and it's just, it fits me perfectly in like a really cozy way. And it says professional bookworm on it. Isn't that just amazing? It has a really wide neckline that I love, and it's so cozy, and it's just one of my favorite things to wear ever. And I love it because I am literally a professional bookworm. So what more could you want? Next up is the teen or the youth room. Pick your favorite young adult or favorite book you read as a kid, or a book that you can't wait to share with your future kids or your nieces or your nephews. And I picked a couple of picture books that I have collected over the past couple years of working in libraries. Each time one comes in as a donation, I'll purchase it from the library sale. And two of them I just wanted to share with you guys. And the first one is A Sick Day for Amos McGee by Philip C. Stead. And this is about a zookeeper named Amos McGee who gets sick one day at work, and the animals miss him, and then they come over and take care of him as he's sick. And it's just adorable. And I also love the way that this book looks. I love the illustrations and the yellow stripes on it. It's just so adorable and cute. And then I also have, this is a little like Chick-fil-A edition of this book that comes in like the kids meals and stuff. But this one came in as a donation, and I just snagged it because I love it. And that is Library Mouse by Daniel Kirk. This is about a little mouse who lives in a library, and he ends up writing a story because he just loves books, and a little kid in the library finds it, and the mouse kind of becomes famous, and he kind of ends up encouraging the kids to write stories of their own and to encourage them to use the libraries and stuff like that. And it's just adorable. I would love to have like the regular hardcover edition of that picture book one day. They're kind of expensive. If you've ever bought picture books like for your kids or somebody in your family, you'll know that they are really, really expensive. And I guess that's just because of the illustrations and depending on if you get a hardcover or not. But yeah, picture books are really expensive. Next up is Museum Tickets, a book that made you feel a bit more cultured after finishing it. And I'm choosing Homegoing by Ya Jessie. I felt like my eyes were opened a little bit more after reading this one. I'm sure you're familiar with it if you haven't read it already. It's an absolutely fantastic book. I highly, highly recommend it. My copy is currently being loaned out to a friend right now, which is why I don't have it. But I want to say that after finishing it, I just felt like I said, my eyes were opened a little bit wider. I could understand the perspective of all of these people that started off in 1700s Ghana and made their way over to the US and following their ancestors, in the way that slavery, even though it was long ago, it still affects us in modern society today in a lot of ways. And it just opened my eyes a little bit more, and I highly recommend it. Next up is Overdrive or Hoopla. Pick an audiobook you love. And I have a lot of audiobooks that I love, but I particularly wanted to mention Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman, as far as I know, narrates all of his audiobooks, or at least the ones that I've read and listened to so far. But I loved Neverwhere because a lot of the book takes place in this underground, dark London. And you can hear in some of the sections, the characters' voices are echoing, so it sounds like you're underground in these tunnels, in the sewers with the characters as you're listening to it, and it was really great, and he does the most amazing job with voicing his characters. Next up is request a purchase. Pick a lesser known book that you want more people to know about and read. I'm picking 2 books. The first one is I Work at a Public Library by Gina Sheridan. And this is a short and sweet and just hilarious book about what it's really like to work at a public library. If you are curious about working in a library, if you love libraries, I would just pick this one up. It'll take you about half an hour, 40 minutes to read. It's really, really quick, but each page is kind of like a journal entry, a short journal entry that Gina Sheridan collected over time to share what it's really like working in a library every day. Some of the encounters are negative, some are positive, all of them are pretty much hilarious, and I definitely just pick it up. If you want to laugh, if you want something quick, pick up I Work at a Public Library. I'm also picking Wolf by Ryan Groudon. This isn't necessarily lesser known or obscure or anything, but I do think it's underread, and I need you guys to read it. I need you guys to read it. It's some of the best YA I've ever read, and it needs to be out there more, and I would love to see a movie adaptation of it. It's just fantastic. Next up is Librarians, a character who loved helping others. And I'm going with the main perspectives of a book that I just finished reading yesterday, and that is Echo by Pam Munoz-Ryan. I loved this, you guys. I loved it. I'm gonna rant and rave about it in another recent reads video coming up if it hasn't already been posted. This is fantastic. It's a middle grade story, historical fiction, following these 3 sets of families and how this one seemingly magical harmonica makes its way through each of their stories and how it all ties together at the end. It is just enchanting. It's incredible. It has so much depth to it, and the writing is just fantastic. But going back to the question before I rave about it too much, all 3 of the main characters, the 3 main POVs, each of them was so focused on helping others before themselves. One was helping his father, another was helping his younger brother, and another little girl was helping her entire family. And it's just, all 3 of them were so selfless and pure, and it was just so great. The last question is Sanctuary. Pick a book that is your safety net or is like home to you or helped you through a rough time. And again, I have 2. I'm picking firstly Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I've only read this twice, and both of those times were within the past year. One a couple months ago, one back in November of 2017, I believe. And I just fell head over heels in love with Anne and Avonlea and Matthew and Marilla. It's just a wonderful story that has such a calming effect on my soul, and I love it so much. And I cannot help but mention my Bible as well. This is the Inspire Bible in the New Living Translation. And the reason I love this Bible, I have another study Bible, but this one, I'll try to find a page that I have colored already. I should have pulled this up earlier. You can actually color some of the pages that are in here. Here we go. So off to the side you have like these illustrations with some scriptures that you can color, and it's so nice. It's so calming, and I love the way that it looks and feels, and it's really nice to be able to sit down and just focus on one verse at a time and just let it kind of wash over me and really sink in. So that's the reason why I love this particular Bible. But specifically within the Bible, I love reading the Psalms, and especially because I wouldn't say that I struggle with anxiety. I'm not sure if I would call it that really, but I do have these moments where I just kind of feel just uncontrollably anxious, and I need to focus on the Lord and kind of get out of my own head, because sometimes I overthink way too much. And so it's so nice to be able to focus on a Psalm of David when he was just kind of surrounded by enemies and overcome with worry and fear. And at the end of each of his Psalms that I've read, there's always this note of hope at the end that is just really motivating and encouraging to me. So the Bible and the Psalms in particular, and I also love the book of Philippians. So there you have it. That was the Library 411 tag. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not done this already, I tag you. I would love to see Amy over at AimeeReads do this tag. I know she uses her library. If you are a booktuber out there who loves to use their library, just feel free to do this tag. I just think it's super fun and I just had to do it for obvious reasons. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this and I will see you next time. Bye.